When did you realize your family wasn't like other families? My dad was a stay-at-home dad and my mom was a breadwinner. At school, whenever I was sick/needed to be picked up/any other issue, they would tell me they would call mom, but I would insist they not bother her at work and call my dad, who was at home and available to get me. Stay-at-home dads are rare, I guess. When my friends wouldn't hide when their parents came home, in fact they'd go greet them. To say I was shocked after years of isolation without being in any house but my own is an understatement. When I realized that other families tell each other they love each other, LMAO. Left with my stoner friend from high school during lunch and went to his house. He'd forgotten homework. His mom was drunk, passed out on the couch. We heard a truck pull into the driveway and my friend went into a panic. Shit, my dad's home. We gotta go now. Too late. His dad came through the door looking like a stereotypical redneck and starts yelling obscenities at my friend and threatening to beat his lazy ass. We both tore out of there. I said to my friend, now I understand why you always ask if you can come to my house after school. Damn. I'm sorry. I had no idea. Yeah. You're the first person I felt like I could trust that wouldn't judge me for my home life situation. It'll be okay. My dad will drink and pass out, so I will be safe to return tonight. I talked to my parents about this, and they had him stay nearly every night for a sleepover. Made sure he was fed, and became surrogate parents to him. This lasted about a year until his oldest sister, who ran away from home a few years ago, returned and invited him to come live with her and her husband. This was in the 80s. I lost touch with him when he moved with his sister, but think about him often. And I'm thankful for giving me insight that not everyone is as fortunate as I with the family I grew up with. My family shows each other love through playful mockery, sarcasm, and arguing loudly about things that don't matter. Try doing that as your default when you meet new people. Mom and dad used to drink heavily and fought all the time. By the time I was in high school, I would get home from school and my mom would already be 8 to 12 beers into her 24-pack of Budweiser. Dad would get home and my mom would immediately instigate an argument. Dad would crack open his beer and then he'd pound them back. Eventually they would be so shit-faced that they would start throwing furniture, fists, pots/pans, silverware to include knives, whatever they got their drunken hands on. Cops were called on the regular. This was the environment I grew up in. It was all I knew about parents until I reached 10ish and I was able to visit other friends' houses for sleepovers. The first night seeing other happy and sober parents was an eye-opener. I do remember one time I was just sick of it all. The constant arguing, the screaming through the walls, the sounds of them hitting each other, that crashing noise of pots and pans or other furniture hitting the walls. Stuff that you just can't sleep through, no matter how hard you close your eyes. I was sick of it and heartbroken and I just couldn't stand alcohol in the house. I opened the refrigerator, grabbed the case and I attempted to throw it all in the trash can outside. But my father stopped me. Even though I had tears in my eyes, he just grabbed the case and brought it back and I pleaded with him to stop. But no dice. Sadly, these fights and drunken nights among my parents continued for years. Like I said initially, most of the time my parents would already be trashed by the time I got home from high school. To put it in perspective, I had early dismissal my whole senior year at 12:30 and my mother would already be drunk when I got home. I would either go up to my room immediately and play video games/watch TV as loud as possible until the fighting started and ended, or just go out with friends and walk in after they fought and passed out. I simply hated being around them as a child and teenager. The sad thing was, they were wonderful sober together, but alcohol changed them into these bitter, awful, angry people that I wouldn't call parents. Seeing other families helped me realize this wasn't normal. Talking with my older siblings helped me realize this wasn't normal. When I became an adult, talking with my therapists helped me realize it wasn't normal. My therapist helped me, and I found out I developed PTSD, depression and other anxiety disorders due to my upbringing. I'm in a healthy place now and so are my parents. They're sober-ish and still together. Sometimes they slip up, and most of the time they get back to being sober. But when they don't, it's hell even as an adult halfway across the country. I remember me and my little sister would have been about 6 and 8. We sat at the top of the stairs, listening to our parents argue, made ourselves dinner, and put ourselves to bed. And she said back quote, "It's like we're their mummy and daddy," and that memory breaks my heart a bit. My parents hosted Christmas one year when I was a teen. A bunch of our family came over and got super drunk. Our Jewish neighbor called and said we should all stop by and say hi at their Hanukkah party. 10 to 15 drunk people walked down the street barefoot and with pitchers of mixed drinks in our hands. We entered their house and they were having a very quiet Hanukkah with 10 very sober seeming people eating and talking here and there. That quickly changed to 20 to 25 super loud drunk people having fun, and at one point having a southern rap battle where everyone contributed to the song with their best southern accent and southern verses. The next day our neighbor thanked us so much for coming. He said everyone, including the old Jewish ladies, had a blast. When I realized other dads don't mentally prepare their 6-year-olds to go to their deaths peacefully when the government comes for us with guillotines. I was born to a strong, independent single mom. My father died of ALS when I was infant. My mom never remarried. I realized from a pretty young age my family situation was not like most. Like my mom treated me more like a friend than a son. She gave serious credence to my opinions and let me do basically whatever I wanted, so long as it wasn't illegal or cruel. I feel this is an appropriate time to mention poop knife. We never eat at the dinner table ever. When a guest, or whoever it is, joins us for an evening, and at some point through the night you look over to them, and they are sitting in their seat just staring around the room. A look of confusion and shock on their face, while trying to figure out WTF is going on, and attempting to make sense of things. For context, when I say my family I'm including aunties, uncles and cousins. We get together once a week at my grandmother's house, and it can get pretty overwhelming if you're not used to it. There's about 30 of us in total. The youngest person is 2Y. Oh, and the eldest is 82. Our parents would give my brother and me the silent treatment. They wouldn't speak to us for hours or days at a time, and never tell us what they were upset about. Their goal was to make us feel guilty and ashamed without ever actually making clear what we had supposedly done wrong. When all of my friends wanted to hang out at my house, it was something that I came to appreciate till late in life, and with my family I'm killing myself to replicate. I may have grown up poor in a wealthy area, but my home was always filled with love and attention from my parents, who were good parents. All of my friends spent their teenage years as latchkey kids, and always wanted to hang out at my place. I never understood it, and always wanted to get out of the house. But sure enough I was always hanging out with people at my place. It really struck home for me in my mid-20s, when I ran into someone from high school I would hang out with. They almost immediately checked on how my family, made sure my parents were doing good, and stuff like that. I asked about his family and he gave me a brief update and kind of explained how his family was more like friends and my family was more like family. Many of my high school friends found my parents a Facebook and still keep in touch with them. My parents have helped save multiple marriages, give a lot of parenting advice to my old friends, and are godparents to basically a small army. In 9th grade, my friends held an intervention for me after I came into school crying again. They made me go to the counselor. They told me to just give some recent examples of stuff my parents said to me. After 30 minutes of this, I was crying, of course. But what boggled my mind was that everyone else in the room was sobbing too. A half dozen other 15-year-old girls, and the 30-something school counselor. That was the first time I realized that maybe I didn't deserve it when my parents were mean to me. This whole thread reminds me of All Happy Families Are Alike, but Every Unhappy Family is Unhappy in Its Own Way by Tolstoy and Anna Karenina. when I was mentioning suicide and my parents wanted me to schedule my suicide so that they have time to plan my funeral. Around the age of 11, my mother died when I was 9, and I found out she had cheated on her husband, my dad, and then she was pregnant with me. She already had other kids with him. When I was around 4 to 5 she left him for my biological father, just that kind of selfish jerk with anger issues. And after she died we had to do DNA test, and it turned out the person I loved the most wasn't even my real dad. I can't even imagine how he had to feel. And from that time I wasn't able to see him that much. But the side of family of my biological father hate me so much, mainly his mother. We had to live here for 2 years and she really did let me know that no one wanted me to be alive, and I just ruined everything by being born. Oh, one of the reasons why I tried to kill myself for the first time when I was 11. My whole childhood was about my mother being sick and then I come into that. No wonder I turned out this way. Realized that constantly taking international vacations isn't normal. Used to go on family vacations all the time during the summer, and was shocked that all of my friends usually stay home, or at most spend a week in California. We are not super wealthy, but we are definitely well off compared to my friends. No one else's dad liked to sit on the floor by the couch and have their mom rub his head every night. My friend talked back to his mom so casually, and I thought that she was gonna do something but she didn't. If I talked back to my mom I would've gotten the belt. When I found out that it was not normal that all parents drive around their kids, take them to soccer practice, to friends' houses, fetch them at the bus stop when it's cold outside, and the next bus takes over 30 minutes to arrive, fetch them at 3 AM from a party. Things like that made me appreciate my parents even more. All of the arguing. My parents would have all out screaming matches in front of us, complete with my dad throwing shit or breaking things, most infamously, an ornate vase that my mom was given by her late grandmother. I was too young to know anything else, and would always end up hiding in my closet with my baby brother until things had cooled off. In hindsight it makes my heart hurt to remember how scared we were. When I was at a friend's house and his mother told me to not say the N-word because it was a bad word to say, I didn't know. I had heard it all my life. This was in the late 70s. When I first got a boyfriend and there were only 12 people at his family Christmas, and it was all very quiet and orderly, and they ate at a reasonable hour. Instead of having 5 women in the kitchen bringing the various Christmas dishes and reheating them in the oven / a large number of pots and crock pots, with various cousins and uncles going in and out looking for the drinks, the chips, the paper towels, 25 to 30 people crowded around the house, uncles smoking on the balcony, kids running. Somebody is in a back room wrapping presents at the last minute. Then at some point, if it's also Hanukkah, my Jewish uncle lights some candles and says some Hanukkah prayer thing with his kids. Then him and my decidedly not Jewish dad drink Menashewitz. We only finally eat at 8 o'clock. Everybody serves themselves. We are all yelling to ask which thing is the spicy stuffing, and which is the regular, which is a vegetarian dish and which isn't. You ask somebody to pass the potatoes, but they don't hear you so someone else does it. At some point one uncle disappears, and then Santa appears to give a sack of presents. Though this only happens some years. Others, my cousin in a Santa hat distributes everything for 30 minutes of absolute chaos during which somebody always loses a gift card or realizes they forgot somebody else's present. Some years we try to play games, but the games never quite work properly and always involve someone trying to shout the rules while shushing everyone, but they can't because there are 5 side conversations going on. At the end of the night, whichever aunt is hosting foists large amounts of leftovers on everyone to bring home in Tupperware dishes or disposable tins. There is always too much dessert. Everyone says goodbye a million times going in and out, packing up the car with the gifts we weren't even supposed to get because we're not supposed to get each other gifts. And we go home well past midnight. At least, that's how it was before COVID. But apparently, all this means my family is crazy. Even though to me that's a normal Christmas. Family dinners last no longer than 10 minutes, including holidays. Conversations don't really sound genuine and insightful. More like just acknowledging each other's existences. No natural bonding over anything. Everything feels forced. Not very inclusive in any degree. Just feels like we don't want each other in our businesses. The ever-present tension between members that suggests anything could break down in a minute's notice. And they will. More like slowly over time. I realize that a lot of my friends grew up in families that have problems. Usually parents divorcing, affairs, absent parents, parents in jail, disputes on money or inheritance, and lots of them were brought up by their grandparents. As I grew up and met more people from richer families, it's mind-blowing to me that they have siblings their families could afford the fine, or they're from other countries. Then I realized that I grew up in a boring Confucian nuclear family with zero disputes. My mom was in charge of the house chores. My father was more like a teacher to me, rather than a dad. And I'm the only kid who didn't have many interactions with grandparents. Good thing is that my parents tried to never argue in front of me, and they respect each other. But I felt no love in my family. Just respect. It's weird to see them slowly turning into a modern couple though. Now that they share everything including house chores, and they express their love to each other. I'm living in another country, so I missed a lot on how this happened. Weird but feel happy for them. Stepdad, get in here, it's naked picture time. Brother, races for the door pulling his shirt off. Me, shrugs, waves, heads inside. No, there were no naked pictures. That was that night's dinner call. No. That wasn't the most outrageous thing that happened that day. Yes, my family is very weird. As a kid my friends used to tell me my mom, adopted single no a father, hated me. I never really understood why until I processed the trauma she caused me as an adult. That it wasn't normal to always be blamed for everything. Told how much she wished she never adopted me. Never being hug loved on or any affection. Or a home cooked meal. I thank every day for my papa as he was the only one I felt truly believed in me. I left home at 13 and haven't looked back. I went over to my sister's house recently and the front door was locked. Her house is my grandmother's old house and the house we all grew up in through high school. The door was never locked. I literally grabbed and turned the handle and walked face first into the door. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.